Part of the Slipstream Ceramic Exhibition, which is in the main gallery right now until, what is it, about the end of, middle of November? 9th of November. Very good. These talks have been organized by the Ceramic Students Association, which was formed this year by a group of TAFE students to promote education in ceramic arts in all its various guises, and I'll just say a few words about that before I introduce our speakers. Everyone knows that there has been, over time, a dramatic decline in the amount of educational resource put into ceramics, and I guess the good news is after a long period in the wilderness, that's starting to look up a little bit, but it's part of the reason that we formed this association, which really is here to promote instruction and learning in the field of ceramics, advocate in support of ceramics teaching in the broader community, represent the interests of students in the field of ceramics and the fine arts, and represent and assist the professional development of ceramic artists. To accomplish these purposes, we'll be lobbying for increased educational resources, programs, and outcomes in the ceramic arts at TAFE and other educational institutions. And I apologize to those of you who heard this before, but I'm delighted to announce that just in the last week, TAFE has approved a major new advanced skill set program in ceramics, which is going to be starting in February 2020. Details of that are going to be available in the coming weeks, but there are some forms I noticed just sitting in on the desk on the main gallery if you go in that look like this, that will have some details, as much as we know now. Thank you, Don. As much as we know now about that. We're also going to be establishing targeted educational initiatives such as workshops, discussions, events such as this one and the one that will take place on Wednesday. I'll talk about that in a second. We'll be building a resource base which students and educational institutions can access to support education in the ceramic arts, which will be written, digital, and ultimately human. And we'll probably include a fair bit of mentoring, including those kinds of things here at TAFE itself. We'll also be consulting with managers, administrators, and policymakers at all levels on appropriate and productive frameworks and policies to support education in the ceramic arts. Now, if that sounds like the kind of thing that you support or would be interested in knowing more about, I would invite you to go into the gallery, and when you look around at the pieces, first of all, fill out one of these little slips of paper, which is a voting slip for the People's Choice Award for this exhibition, which we'll be announcing later on after the exhibition is over. And if you'd like to know more about the Ceramic Students Association or join our mailing list, please put an email or some contact information on this little slip as you drop it in the vase on the counter just by the door. Okay? So thank you very much for your attention on that. I'll just introduce the speakers now. John Teschendorf was born in Melbourne in 1942 and moved to Perth in 1995. He studied at the Caulfield Institute of Technology, which is now Monash, the RMIT, and the Royal College of Art in London. He's held solo exhibitions in Melbourne, Sydney, Newcastle, Oxford, and has participated in numerous national and international group exhibitions. Representing Australia at the 36th Concorso Internazionale della Ceramica di Arte Faenza, Italy, that's a mouthful, isn't it there? And in contemporary Australian ceramics at the Smithsonian Institute in Washington. In 1995, he was selected for the Australian Ceramics 1830 to 1995 Major Survey Exhibition presented at the Museo Internazionale della Ceramica at Faenza, Italy. May have blown away. Oh, thank you. Since the early 1980s, he's been working with constructed forms and works on paper while holding a number of senior academic appointments at places such as Melbourne, the Melbourne State College, Perth Curtin University, and the Kuala Lumpur Malaysian Institute of Art and at Lim Kok Wing Institute of Technology. His work is represented in major Australian and international public collections, and he currently lives and works in Fremantle. We're delighted to have him here with us today. Please give him a warm welcome. Moving to our interviewee, Warrick Palmateer. He was born in Melbourne in 1969. Graduated with an advanced diploma in studio ceramics from Perth Technical College, our very own North Metropolitan TAFE, where we're sitting now, where he was active in all sorts of roles, teaching, helping students, technician, did everything here. Did you work at some point?
Done a bit of everything, I think, yeah.
He completed a Bachelor of Fine Arts at Curtin University in 1999, followed by a Diploma of Education at Curtin University in 2003. He currently works as an art teacher at Prentaville Catholic College in Ocean Reef. He's been collaborating with Pippin Drysdale for the past 25 years, during which time he has been exclusively responsible for the manual production of her open and closed forms, all hand-thrown on a potter's wheel in her Fremantle studio. While they have consistently collaborated through this special partnership, Warrick has also steadily cultivated his own distinctive arts practice. Warrick's own abilities and achievements in ceramic art have burst onto the scene over the last 18 months, most prominently in the Confluence exhibition at Curtin University last October, where a major new line of his own work, produced over 9 months in brick kilns at Midland, was presented alongside joint work with Pippin Drysdale. That exhibition was a tremendous success, with every one of his works acquired by major collections in Western Australia and beyond. In speaking about that exhibition, Warrick had the following to say. He said, "Clay is a simple, pure material, immediately responsive to the touch. It is transformative in its nature, changing from soft, malleable, and plastic to hard, durable, and permanent once heat is applied. These magical properties have captivated me ever since being introduced to this form of alchemy when I was an art student at high school 35 years ago." The vessels exhibited at the John Curtin exhibition have been inspired by a landscape that is very special to me, the West Australian coastline. The vessels were all hand-thrown on a potter's wheel, and texture was expressively applied and color intuitively rendered to suggest the rugged and fragile beauty of the West Australian littoral zone. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you your Palmateer. Thank you. At this point, I'll turn over to our interviewer, John, to ask Warrick a few questions. Thank you.
I reckon we should both go home now.
It can only go downhill for me.
Yes, I'm wondering now that date of birth stayed in there. I may not look like it, but I feel very much like Winston Churchill in these situations. And as much as Churchill in his later years always referred to himself as a former naval person, because he was, as some of you will remember, First Lord of the Admiralty, and thought that that was the best job he ever had. So I suppose in a sense I'm a former clay person. Since the mid-80s, 1980s, I've not worked with clay at all, for lots of reasons, personal, private and public. Although I still think like a potter. And I'm taken very much by those two words that Warrick used to describe clay, fine and pure. And whilst that is indicative of many who work with clay and the material itself, it certainly has sweet bugger all to do with people who work in art schools. Very few are fine and very few are pure. And I think the diminution of ceramics, which we might talk about later, in the tertiary sector in this state is nothing short of criminal. And that criminality has been, if you like, driven by people who should have known better, and many of whom have left the state. But enough of that, we may get to politics. But
That's interesting.
I was pleased to say yes when I realised what this was all about. And venture out of Fremantle, come across the river.
Can I just interrupt you? Because John's got a very quiet voice. I just wonder if we might reconfigure and we'll move into a little bit of a circle round. So I'm going to move this table with you, Kurt, and we'll come into a semicircle round John.
Great idea.
And then other people will take this.
A bit more intimate that way, I believe. I mean,
Let's come right up to them like this.
come on, be on you.
That's nice. Is that good for everyone now? Good. You want to sit closer? Yeah, come on in.
We can't move back any further.
Are you okay with your position?
What to do? And I thought about this on the train as I was coming up today and previously. And one of the opportunities a session like this avails us is to find out something that may not make it into the curriculum detail or the biodata. And it's something that fascinates me as an artist and as a former academic, I suppose. And that is, where did it all start? Did it start at home? And I'm talking at home as a child, amongst a family group, peers, environment and so on. You have mentioned high school. But can you flick back a bit further towards childhood per se and identify any markers? Maybe.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I've never been pulled back that far to actually think about that starting point when I actually, I guess, started creating and building. But I do have significant memories of trying to build things out of wood as at a young age, and you know, going into my father's shed and getting hold of saws and hammers and constructing and building things that I thought obviously that were going to serve a purpose for me at that point in my life, but they were, you know, things like a hut for a rabbit, and creating you know, frames for pictures that I wanted to frame, surfing pictures on my walls and things like that. So it was all, I was interested in three-dimensional building and tools and making and construction materials. From probably, I started doing that probably around about 8 years of age. So there is certainly that, and I was always interested in writing. I would write stories and illustrate these stories as well from an early age. So yeah, that's interesting that you drew that out, because I actually sometimes forgot that I used to do that, but I would very much enjoy writing and drawing. Yeah.
When a big bloke decides that he's, you know, and a big girl, when a person decides that they want to be an artist, often the most difficult thing, it's like coming out when you say get berries. Gee, I think I'll go to art school. And, when the screaming goes down, they say, why would you waste your life doing that? Did you ever have those sorts of fracas and then balls about?
Yeah, no, I did very much. My father was quite a successful businessman, and he certainly knew very little about art, and had no real concept that there was something that you could actually make a career in, other than, you know, obviously there were people who did make careers in them, but he didn't think I was going to be one of them at that age of about 16. But I was fortunate that my mum was very supportive, and my parents they divorced when I was quite young. I was probably in about year 4, so I was about 10 years old at primary school when they did separate, and I did live with my father. I moved, and my sister went and lived with my mother, but I still kept close contact with my mum, and through those years into my early and late teens, and I was a little bit lost, as far as, not lost, but I wanted to, school wasn't for me, other than the art part of it, but I left school at an early age and moved down to Yallingup, and I got involved in a bit around Haps pottery at the time down there, a bit of clay around there, and my mum sort of thought there's an opportunity here to maybe get him into something, and she would come down and visit me, bring me in brochures of courses and so forth, and the one that grabbed me was the Perth Technical College course, and it was a 3-year full-time course at the time at St Bridget's Annex. And she said, well, why don't we come up and we'll go for an interview and see if you can get into it. And I think she was thinking that way, you know, it would sort of take me out of just what she thought at the time was a dropout surfer on the coast. I never felt like that, but I was having a good time, I must say. But yeah, but I came back to Perth with her. I went for an interview at the college, and so I have to thank my mum for that, because she was the one who really pushed that. My dad definitely, he did not want me to go into an arts career, but now in retrospect, he's my number one fan. He's
still ticking on.
He's still ticking on. Yeah, he's hanging on there. He's not in the greatest of health, but he was front and centre at the opening at John Curtin last year, and he's been to everything that I've ever participated in, as far as, you know, postgraduate sort of exhibitions and so forth. And yeah, he's very supportive, and he's very proud now too. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a family plays a great role in some stories and almost negligible in other stories. It depends so much upon the politics of each individual family, I guess. And my mother, over 20 years, whenever I visited her, and say, would ask the question, what's going on? And she'd always say, well, that's interesting, dear. That's it.
Yeah.
Never really knew whether she was interested or not. But that leads me to collections. And family collections, the bits and pieces of your early work still exist.
Yes, yeah.
Where are they?
They're in my mum's garden. But there's enough for a very sort of good little retrospective exhibition hanging in that garden. And most of the work that my mum has is work that I made when I was at Perth Technical College, actually, in the early years. And I do have other works. My dad has a few pieces in his garden and in his house too. Mainly family they're the ones that I see anyway. There are other works around because I know that I've sold a lot of work over the years, but the ones that I do see are the ones I do see the most of are the ones at my mum's house. Yeah, so I do visit there quite often. So, and it's nice to look at them. They're actually quite interesting pieces, and I can sort of see links to what I have done. It's sort of obviously was something that was in me. Some of the forms that I've created, continue to create, they were there then too. It's quite interesting.
Yeah. Someone said to me when I was younger, in those days, clay worker, never throw anything away. And I guess it's interesting to reflect on those early moves. Sometimes you'll go back and remove them forcibly.
Yeah, that's true. I have done that.
Like 1942 in that CV. Or not, as the case may be. I think not, as the case may be, is a good way to go.
I'm glad. I mean, in my early years, I used to be very, what would you say, ruthless in the way that I would look at my work, and if I didn't like it, I would destroy it. And so, but I'm really glad that I didn't destroy those pieces that I do have at my mum's place, because probably my mum would have grabbed them before I had the chance to do it, because I was brought up under this. Well, I had to be a coach in my final year of my Perth Technical College, but the 2 years preceding that, I had a lecturer named David Hunt. I don't know if you've met him. Yeah, an American. And he was very much of that opinion that you don't fire anything, don't make anything ceramic or permanent that you aren't 100% happy with, and that is, some sort of sense of resolution or resolved. Because it's going to be in this world for a long time, and the idea of it being sort of excavated in 2,000 years' time, and people looking at it and looking at the culture that produced it and making judgments on it was something that he found challenging with the work that was being produced at the college at the time.
That's an interesting comment, actually. Sir Herbert Reed once said that you judge the quality of a civilization by its pottery.
Yeah.
If some of the things that have been made in WA over the last 50 years are found, my God, there was this primitive edge.
Yes.
I hope it does prove to be useful.
Yeah. Well.
To the history of Warrick as it moves forward.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's. I still have that sort of underpinning philosophy behind the way that I work, and I try and I've always told my students the same, that story that I've just related to you all, to let them think about it a little bit, what they are actually producing, because there's enough stuff in this world. And we've got to be think about it.
Jumping forward, we'll give secondary school a miss.
Yeah.
And hit St Bridget's running. How does that? You worked full time for 3 years.
Yes, full time doing a ceramics course.
Doing a ceramics course.
Yeah.
Reflecting on that, how does the today that this monolith has compared to that?
Yeah. So.
What are the differences?
Well, the facility's so much better. This facility's incredible. I mean, state of the art, the ceramics workshop, studios, gallery, this whole space here, the drawing studios, painting studios. I mean, it's just mind-blowing. But unfortunately, what we had back then as far as the actual course and the academic rigour that we had as far as a full-time course with great lecturers, and obviously there was enough money in the system to be able to run it as a full-time course. That doesn't exist now. Well, hopefully it's going to move towards back there, but yeah, so it's disappointing that we've got this facility here, right in the centre of the city, in the cultural precinct. It's got such a great history, coming from Perth Technical College, from whenever that started. I don't even know the date that Perth Technical College started, but Yeah.
First arts design students, 1900.
1900, yeah. So you're looking at 120 years of history. And it is a fantastic place. I mean, the space, but it has to have the investment in the actual academic rigour here, and to be able to back the courses up with full-time lecturers, full-time hours here, and be bold, put it out there, and the people will come. There's people knocking on the doors trying to come into this place to do these courses, but they aren't offering them. Yeah.
Well, maybe we might segue gently into the political realm for a moment. Having Bella here and other stalwarts, I'll start by asking you all a question. Why is this called North Metropolitan College of TAFE, for example? The history has been moved to the northern suburbs, really. I think of it still as CMC, it's central. It has a central role to play, and it could find itself being the only role to play in tertiary level arts in Western Australia if histories continue on the periphery.
And we would love to have kept our brand and identity of the Central Institute of Technology, but the last government, the Liberal government, decided there would be 4 TAFEs in Western Australia, and it was a cost-cutting exercise in management, and also you can write a handbook to say how many hours, how many students, how many staff, what level they get paid, how many assistants they get. So they were able to create a document, which is the way government seems to work now, that they can write the story and then we have to live it. But they made 4 TAFEs in WA. There's 2 in Perth, South Metro, North Metro. So Central TAFE joined Clarkson, Balga, Midland, Joondalup, whatever other TAFEs are north of the river, and we teach people how to paint cars, horses. We've got something going on with horses, apart from all the things we do here. But we've, suddenly we're a part of a whole group. Same with South Metro. And then in the state, there's 2 TAFEs. One's for the north of the state and one's for south of Perth. And in this method, they're able to have like 4 TAFE directors, so many TAFE executive directors. And
Okay.
this is, then the government changed. So unfortunately, that was their solution. The state government did that.
I should apologise for moving into the political realm.
But
that's
it's
no
actually a little more
scenario.
complex than that. One of the things that started when I first started in TAFE, which was 1980, was there was the monolithic technical education department and these colleges scattered around the city, which were just sort of branches really of the education department. Then there was this sort of movement towards independent, self-governing schools starting in the country. Then that movement came to the city, and there's this sort of spread of autonomous institutions, and then that generally got out of control, and then they started pulling it back in again. And what we're seeing now is it being pulled back in again. And it's partly to do with the finances, obviously.
I guess so.
It's cheaper to run one big organisation. But secondly, it's to do with managing the curriculum in the way that the federal government wants us to manage it. So there's all these training packages and competency-based training, and it's a monolith.
Let's hope there's some change in the future, as resources such as you guys have here are probably unique now in WA.
Definitely, yeah.
Compared to Mr. Kirkman's before, everything's gone.
And what you're suggesting, John, is that the art schools such as Curtin, UWA, Edith Cowan, do you believe that they're on a decline and that they won't exist?
I would suggest that unless there's a serious change in the current neoliberal attitude to curriculum, we will see a diminution of effort at the undergraduate level. There will still be a place, I believe, for graduate level studies with a home-based studio environment to support it in any one of a number of institutions. But I think that what has happened in the last 20 years, as I said to begin with, and nothing short of criminal, the breakup of different art schools. And the only one that's ticking now, even though it's ticking under duress, is this one. The curve is gone. There's no school or its department in a large, mediocre, media-run
It's almost in the
morass.
English department, isn't it?
UWA is okay at the moment under the heading of the School of Design, which has changed completely, and that's linked strongly to architecture. So they'll be okay, I think. And I can't comment on either part because it's too far out of my way to know about it. But I'm talking, I want to get back here, if I can.
Yeah.
Well, we might go back to the Valley of Death later. But, at the moment, I've got a then and now question. I wanted to, if you like, interrogate a little bit. When was it in those 3 years at St Bridget's that you thought there might be a future for you as a full-time operator or as an operator?
Well, probably, I must admit, once I got in the doors there, and it was a very well run course. I mean, we did painting, drawing, we had design, we had our ceramic studio course. It was contact hours were probably around about 20 hours a week. It was a big contact hours compared to what contact hours are now for a full-time student. And I thought from the outset, really, wow, this is full-time. I'm imagining I could actually do this full-time. So I actually thought it pretty much from the moment I was in that space. I really thought, if I stay here, I'm going to come out with some skills. And I was talking to my lecturers who were also, giving you that type of, belief that you could make a full-time living out of it. And I was only 16. So when you're 16, I mean, people tell you that you can do it. I think you can. You believe it at that age. I mean, I was lucky. I was in those very formative years when I was there, young, impressionable, eager for knowledge. I was like a sponge. I just soaked up everything, and I took every opportunity. I had nothing else really. I had no other external forces that were dragging me away from the school. So I was in there every minute I could be there, and you could be there all day and all night if you wanted to be. So. And I used it like that. I used it as my own personal studio. I was in there all the time working, and but I wasn't the only one. There were other students doing the same thing. They had a lot of energy there.
Of the group that you were part of during those years, who else is still a game player?
Well, Jalikwa Chongwei, he does work here part-time. He was a year ahead of me. He was in the same year group as Beverly Gallup, who's since passed away, but she went on to have a full-time career in it. Fleur Shell was a couple of years below me, so she's got work in the show here. Who else? There's a couple of other potters who are working out of Guildford Potters. They're still involved in running that space out there and showing work out there. Bill will probably tell you more names, but Adam Stead, yeah, he moved to Victoria and went and worked with North Coast Pottery. I haven't heard from him for a long time, but he was in my year group. So there were quite a few of us who went on to actually make a living out of working in ceramics. Pretty much straight out of the college.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was going to be the next question. What happened? Graduation night, celebration, what's next?
Well, I was fortunate because on our graduation, at our graduation exhibition, we asked Joan Campbell to open it, and we, as a group, there was only 5 of us. That was the other thing that was quite amazing, is that we started with, I think, about 16 or 17 students in the full-time program in our first year, and by the time we graduated, I think there was only 5 in the year, but they ran the course with 5 of us with, contact hours, 5 students with 1 lecturer in painting, 1 lecturer in design, 1 lecturer in studio, so, sorry, it was incredible like that, and when we graduated, there was 5 of us. We rented a space in City Arcade. In fact, I think they gave it to us. It was a shop front that was vacant there, and one of the first pop-up shops, I reckon, that in Perth, because we put an exhibition together in this space, the City Arcade. And Joan Campbell was asked to open it, and when she came to the opening, she previewed it a couple of hours before the show opened, and she wrote some notes, and she spoke very kindly about all the work in the show, and she offered me a job to start the next day. So I was really lucky because that's where I ended up, and I ended up going down to her studio in Bathers Beach in Fremantle, and I spent about 18 months with her working on. Well, that was quite amazing because I thought I'd be going out making, you know, the cups and bowls and production sort of wear, but I went straight into making one-off serious artworks with her as her assistant, and she had some big commissions at the time that were going to the East Coast and some in Perth, and she wanted some of the sections thrown, and she employed me to do that, and that's how I started out. Worked there for 18 months with her, and did another sort of form of a traineeship with her in a sense. Yeah. So there was other potters in Perth as well, because I had an opportunity to work with Ian McRae at the time, who had Beaufort Pottery as well. But I went to Joan and worked there instead. So, but there was quite a lot going on in Perth at the time.
Did Joan have a gang of people working for her when you went there?
There was myself and another potter, Kate. She was there as well, so she had 2 assistants. But she had, before I started there, in the sort of late 70s, early 80s, she did have a big team of trainees working with her, and she may have 4 or 5, maybe up to about 8 people working there at any one time. But I came post that, and she had a small team then. And as far as I know, the trainees that worked there for her, they didn't really get paid. They made their work and sold it through her gallery, and that was the way that they had income. But they were also obliged to help her in part of the process, whereas she actually paid me a wage to work there, and then she gave me some studio space to use for myself as well during the time that I wasn't working for her. So it was a great experience working with her. I learned a lot, and I met a lot of good people.
I was in Melbourne, and we sent numbers of students over to work with Joan.
Yes, yeah. Well, she took a lot of trainees on. Yeah. And she would, if you walked up to her and you asked her if you could work there, she would pretty much always say yes. Yeah, she was open door policy, and she liked the energy of having other people around her, and what they could sort of, how she could learn from them, what they could learn from her. She was very much that sort of person who liked the dynamic of having energy in the studio. So she would have taken on lots of trainees for that reason. Yeah. It was a big space too, so I could handle it. Yeah. If you know the space, it's Cadogo now, but when I was there was a huge big asbestos shed on the side, which was the actual studio. Cadogo was just where that was just a gallery. It wasn't actually where we worked. We worked in the shed beside it. Yeah, so it was quite a big space.
From that experience, I guess in the scheme of things, fairly useful experience, what happened next?
Well, I ended up, 18 months I was there, and I did some very big works with Joan, and I think we were sort of coming to the end where I sort of thought I was having, I was starting to dream about Joan, and I was having nightmares in some ways. It was quite an intense relationship, I've got to say. But yeah, because she was an awesome person, but she was so demanding, and she left a massive impression on me, both positive and negative.
You and me both. Right?
Yeah. So, anyway, but after about 18 months, I decided that I would leave the state, and I went east, and packed up my car and the surfboard. I headed east to go travelling and surfing, and I ended up working in a pottery in South Australia. So that's where I got to Adelaide. I didn't get very far, and I didn't have any money left, so I needed to get a job. And I went down to what was the Centrelink or SES link or something like that was called. I can't remember whatever it was. It was where you got jobs, and you go around and have them on the board. They had all the cards on the board for all the jobs that you could apply for. I couldn't believe it. There was a job for a potter on the board I'm not joking, in the local Centrelink place. So I grabbed the card, actually took the card out, and you went up to the counter and you gave the card to the person at the counter. They arranged the interview for you, and so anyway, I found myself at this pottery, and I was the guys, it was a production pottery. They had about 6 potters working on a production line. They had another heap of people in there, probably staff of about 40 people in this pottery, about 6 throwers, and all the rest were people working jigger and jolly machines. They're like sort of moulded style throwing pots. They had kiln packers, they made their own clay there. So it was a big concern, and all the work was sold on party plan. A guy named Robin, somebody or other, I can't remember his last name now, but it was called Aston Park Pottery, and it was a big party plan concern, and everything was obviously sold with that type of system, but we were making thousands of pots there every week. It was big, and all functional sort of pottery, yeah. From flower pots through to cups that you would drink from, cooking pots.
What year are we here?
I would say that would have been 89, 90. Yeah.
Interesting glazes.
There was just one glaze. They used one glaze, and it was this dark blackish sort of glaze, and all the work was, it had like a line about halfway down from the top, from the rim of the work, about halfway down, where they glazed the inside glaze down to it, and then the body colour was left for the bottom sort of third of the work. So yeah, it was good. It was all raw fire. It was all once fired. So yeah, it was all functional. It didn't leak. It was all nice stoneware sort of work, and I learned a lot there because there was like 5 other potters on all on piece rates. So you got paid obviously what you made. Everyone sort of like on that line there had the shapes or the items that they would make. So there was a guy there who only made coffee cups and jugs, say small jugs, and the next person would be making all the canisters. The next one would be making flower pots, etc., etc. Anyway, so they needed someone who could throw the large work there, which was all the big bread crocks and the big flower pots and everything. And I made a lot of large work, but not on a production scale. So when I rocked up, they said to me, "Oh, look, this will be what we'll be making. How do you feel about it?" I said, "I think I can do it." But the first week I started, I think all my work got basically got a knife through it, said it wasn't good enough. Sort of thing. Well, I didn't meet the spec, but I didn't give up, and obviously I didn't get paid. I didn't get paid for anything that unless it went through the kiln. So but it was really good. It was a very good learning ground for me because I had these potters that were amazing potters who'd been working. Some of them had been working doing that sort of work 30 years. Yeah, so they were fantastic throwers, and I learned a lot from them. And by the time I worked there for about a year, I stayed there for a year, and by the time I finished, I really had earned my stripes, and was one of the team there. And I did end up making all the large work there for that place, so it was a great job. And I saved enough money to travel around the rest of Australia without even having to work anymore. I spent another year travelling without even working, but I saved pretty hard. So yeah, that was great. It was good learning. I did a little bit of work along the way. I worked at a pottery in New South Wales as well on the south coast, but just for a bit of fun and mucking around there. I didn't sort of make much money out of that one, but yeah. And I came back to the state, and then Bila gave me a job when I came back in, working as a technician at St. Bridget's. So
What year was that?
probably about 92 or something like
Yeah,
that.
I think that's around when I first met you, around that.
Yeah. So I ended up as a technician here for about only for about a year. I was a technician here, and I was then also starting to work for Pip and Drysdale in that same year.
At that time.
Yeah, it was around the same time I started there, and I ended up getting a bit of an in with quite a few potters in Perth, like Pippin, Sandra Black, some other potters up in the hills area who liked the idea of perhaps me throwing their work for them. They could step back and go more into the marketing side of things and just the glazing and administrative role, and I'd make all their work for them, and I ended up developing a business where I was a thrower, and I would go to these places and spend a day throwing work for people. And that's when I left here as a technician and took it on to go and do that. Yeah.
So you could use the term journeyman potter
Yes.
to describe you. something more than that now.
Yeah.
But your journey has been almost there's an certain inevitability about where you were going to end up.
Yeah.
Sometime in a future yet to be determined, but it was always going to happen.
Yeah.
I'll allow myself a small indulgence. Speaking of Joan Campbell, who I loved dearly and hated almost in equal measure, we used to find ourselves on stages around Australia talking about this and that, and workshops and seminars and so on and so forth. And she had a way about her that was it was impossible to ignore. She was a dynamo, and a dynamo with a fringe dweller's look on the world, you know, macrame clad and incense in the corner pot sort of thing. And her making was very much about that. She was part of a world network of Raku fanatics and masters, and Paul Zollner and others who we got to meet through Joan. It was very interesting. Anyhow, we grumped our way here and there. She got really angry with me from time to time because I was then part of a group of people using clay for different reasons, not to make pots. I once likened unpacking a kiln of pots and teacups to be not dissimilar to IKEA opening a container load of their stuff. At which time I think Joan jumped out of her seat in the auditorium. This was in Adelaide, and ran down and literally physically attacked me. And Gwen Hanson-Pickett was in, and she ran up and grabbed the other side of me. I think they were going to pull me apart. And then John Dermer jumped over the back. He's a big bloke like this, and one of the best throwers I have ever seen. John was saying, "Stop, don't kill him. It doesn't matter what he does, he makes it well." But I had been on this circuit for a while, and both Joan and I was in London at the Royal College at this time, and a Spanish magazine, Ceramica, brought out a big issue on the international show that we had travelling around the world from Australia. And Joan and I were on the front cover for our works work. So she sent me a text I was in London, she was in Fremantle. I thought, oh well, oil on the troubled waters. Or jump forward to 1985 when I left and came here, and Annette and I bought a house in Lilly Street, and the place was crawling with white ants. So I said, we can't have this. So but they were all coming from a tree in the backyard, so I stormed around the front, counted off the houses, walked up to the front door, knocked and said, "You're bloody..." And who opened the door with Joan Campbell. So we became neighbours. The tree went, and we ended up good friends, but it's...
That house, I know her house there in Fremantle, but I spent a fair bit of time there. But it had one of the best collections of international ceramics.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to that collection when she passed away, but there was works from Solner, Volkas, the big American, 70s heroes, that were all through her house, and everybody else. It was, don't know what happened to it, but it was worthy of any major collection in Australia.
Yes, there are a few around, and we don't have Robert Bell here anymore, which is in a sense
John, I'm sorry, I'm just conscious of the time. We had sort of talked about a half hour for you and work to have a go, and maybe a few questions from the audience. You're just cruising along, so it all sounds good. But I would just sort of perhaps invite anyone who wants to ask a question of Warrick or John, maybe.
Well, I was going to move on to the dry cell phenomenon, but I don't think I'll do that because I think everyone here knows about it, and everyone here would be delighted to know that publicly now there is acknowledgement of how important a certain young man's contribution has been to that. I was looking in my cupboard before I came here. I have some bowls that Pippa made when she was a student, and they're clunky. And then, but you can see the brushwork starting to emerge.
Yeah.
And then in another space we have some more contemporary works, beautifully thrown, superbly articulated, and delightfully decorated. So they're wonderful works. And they wouldn't be there without this bloke. There's no question in my mind. So personally, I'm delighted to see that you are getting a share of the glory.
Yes, it's
And I think it's been good for ceramics here in WA to see a few people of your organization be elevated to master students and provide role models. What we have to do is get those role models and these colleges and these ideas into the mind of government. I'm past it, but you guys have got a real challenge in front of you, I think, before the game is lost. That's about it. But I'm happy to answer questions.
yeah, thanks.
Thank you for sharing
Oh,
with
yeah.
me.
No, it's been great. I mean, I just, on a personal note, Kurt did ask me who I thought would be great to come and do this, and I said John Tesher, and so it was my suggestion, John, for you to come here. And
We'll talk about this later.
but I'm so delighted that you did come, because you've been a hero of mine, even though you probably don't know it. But yeah, I've always enjoyed your perspective, your articulate voice. Not always, obviously, I mean, for the thrown vessel, because I know that you probably have challenged that notion, or that idea in the past, certainly when you were at Kurt. But I've enjoyed any time you've ever opened an exhibition, being in the audience and listening to the way that you are so quick to respond to anything that's in the moment as well, so articulately and politically sometimes as well, and take anyone on. And I love that about you personally. So it's been an honour to be able to sit next to you today as well.
But thanks for those kind words.
Yeah.
I think it's more than a little influenced by the fact that I'm a member of the College Football Club. And to do that in Fremantle, you have to talk quickly. Will I get out of this bar on my own?
John, can I just ask a question, just following up on what Warrick just said? I mean, in as much as there may be some tentative rays of sunlight on the horizon for the ceramic medium, the subject you and Warrick were just discussing, how do you see this medium, if there is to be a future for it, how do you see it evolving?
Okay, look, that's a loaded question. We can't answer it here, although we can all contribute to the answer from our singular and conjoint perspectives. I'll talk of an ideal world. An ideal world would see in WA and in Australia the creation of a Ministry of Culture. And the French model here is the one that I would desire, where all museums and all the art schools are under the rubric of the Ministry of Culture. The National Art School model is completely independent of the educational model in France. And the same thing happens here, there, and everywhere. Our greatest difficulty at the moment as a nation is that we're locked into a neoliberal phase in our development. By that I mean, in an administrative sense, things are driven from the top. I was part of tertiary education, feel a good deal as you guys were too, where much of what an art school meant was driven from the studios, from the students and from the staff. And we made the suggestions that we had to fight for things. We thought it was a good idea, we thought glass should come in during ceramics, then you had to fight the battle for it here on the studio floor, and if you convince your leaders. Now it's completely changed. Almost every institution that I can call to mind is driven from the top, from the Vice Chancellor or from the College President's office, and it goes down according to the agenda that is decided by government, either state or national. That's a preamble, if you like. While there are independent people in studios around any environment working in play, there is a future. You may not have the same breadth of production perhaps we enjoyed in the 80s and 90s, but that's, I think, immaterial. You will find that clay cannot be ignored by artists. And I happened to be in Spain in 2013 for a demonstration of the Biennale, and it was like going to clay centre. Artists from all over the world were working with clay because of its dramatic intent, its ability to talk about the world, the process of destroying. It was a revelation to me, and since then I know there has been a renaissance in America, and Britain, I think, has never faltered. They've always had an acknowledgement of the importance of the potter in his or her own world. And Europe, I think, will be a bastion. If Europe survives, Europe may be teetering on the brink of the end of the EU, which would be a disaster again, but that's another story. There will always be clay. Whether it's the way we would like it to be or not, I can't answer that. Whether it will allow people to earn a living, I can't answer that either. But I hope that all of those are positives.
So let me ask a follow-on question. So if you look at the political landscape that we're facing now here in WA in particular, and mindful of all the things you've just told us, if a bunch of students were to get together and start some kind of organization, it's called the Ceramic Students Association, what advice would you give such an organization going
Gosh.
forward?
Find a good talker to run your thesis into the seats of power, because unless you have that ability to convince the neoliberal mob of its efficacy, then it won't work at all. You know, ideally I would like to see this become Central Metropolitan College, or whatever you want to call it. I would like to see the studio components of UWA, of Curtin, of Edith Cowan shut down. I would like to see the whole mob coming here as an independent, freestanding, high-quality art school. And we don't have anything like that in the West at the moment. There are models in Australia. There's Canberra School of Art. There is the VCA, which has moved almost seamlessly into Melbourne University and maintained its independence. And there's RMIT, which I'm not as sure about RMIT as I used to be. But that's another story. Yeah, by all means. And if it only lasts a decade, a single decade, there will surely be some shop fronts around 3 hours. First, where you can get the word out. And maybe the gallery too. I think since Robert Bell has left here, we've seen less and less of the amazing collection of design and craft objects that are in that building over there. It's about time to get some of them out on the wall so people
I get
can see them.
I don't make them.
No,
It is an amazing collection.
it is. It's a stunning collection, and it should be seen from time to time.
What I would like to ask though, because you obviously work there.
Yes.
Yeah. In the last, say, 15 years, compared to the 15 years previous, how much work has been purchased from, you know, potters and the sort of crafts movement?
Well, yeah, it depends on the curators and the director. And in the last 10 years,
Yeah.
it's been a bit sad.
It's been very
So that's
sad.
all in one.
Well, that's good.
I can vouch for one.
Yeah, that's nice. That's good to hear.
good news.
Yeah. But,
Sorry?
It's
That's
interesting.
good news.
Yes.
But, you know, there are some amazing works that haven't been seen. I mean, our storage areas that you can't access, you know, and that's another criminal story. Yeah, so that's part of the problem, that the curators can't actually see what's in the collection. It's not digitised, you know, so, but, yeah, there is incredible stuff there.
Well, I suppose to wind up, you know, today there are 20 of us here, and that's better than having two, because we'll talk about it. There's an exhibition inside, and it might be a little like a Clint Eastwood movie, you know, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly. But the fact that it's there is the main thing, and that's great, and that's fun to walk around. And there are lots of people like me, former ceramics people, and people who look to collect and still look to engage. And we are infectious.
I'm always surprised at how few people turn up to tours.
Yeah.
Like in Perth, find it really.
Well, there are some this afternoon at 3 o'clock at Turner Galleries. Helen Britton's talking, and Anna Nazari and Derek Jones and Helen's partners with David. So I'll walk up to Turner Galleries at 3 o'clock. There you go. Anyhow, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, John Warrick.